But right down here, we have some things that everyone should consider before they start burning. And I've got a charged hose with water, and that gives me a very good comfort level of being able to handle the pile. I can either squirt water on the pile and keep it from burning intensely, or I can squirt water around it and keep it in one place. The bucket with water can be very effective if the hose doesn't reach, just to have an initial ability to put out a little spot fire or to keep it from running. Too many homeowners try to put it out really close to an intense fire through the radiant heat. I tend to allow it to burn a little bit on the outside and then put it out after your radiant heat dies down a little bit. For fall ignition, when piles are hard to burn, a propane torch with a bell is a very effective way of lighting fairly wet piles that are a little more difficult to burn. This pile right now, because it's fairly dry, will be easily burned with a newspaper and a match. So it varies a little bit, but I would very strongly advocate not doing gasoline or volatile liquids trying to ignite piles. We've had a lot of burn injuries from that attempt to burn piles. Okay.
And you have a nice assortment of long-handled tools there to help you.
Shovels and rakes. The flat shovel actually is better than the firefighting shovel in that this will put out a lot of fire, especially in grass, rather than the traditional firefighter shovel. Grass scares me more than, this is kind of a vegetation of combination brush, but it's a forest ground cover. And if you're adjacent to long grass, that's where we lose a lot of fires. With the little wind that comes up, that grass is so quick and it burns very, very well. So once it's dry.
So that said, our number one cause of human-caused wildfires is escape debris burns.
Yep.
Which is why this equipment is so important. We have about 70% of our fires annually are human-caused. Dragging chains, escape debris burns, this is our number one. This is our number one cause.
So the other thing that I always look at is, what is the duff and litter layer like? Is it wet or is it dry? Because in a forested environment, it's going to want to creep, because I have this is just a pile on a forest floor. So I would shy away from old stumps and try to end up looking around a little bit to see what would hold and carry fire for a long time. And after a while, you could get a sense of where you should place the piles.
Let's burn clean piles that don't have a lot of dirt, that they're not wet. We're not burning wet grass, clippings, wet leaves, anything like that. Okay.
So this is kind of what I would call a mumble jumble pile. We don't have everything laying in the same direction, but we have a dome effect. But it's basically Douglas fir branches that had their needles on, and they were piled when it's green. So now they're dry and they're cured, and that is going to create a fairly intense compact pile. So if it's just sticks without needles, you'd want to lay them all the right one way instead of mumble jumble, because you wouldn't be able to get it to sometimes even ignite or carry. So there are different ways of piling. Now this has got a lot of sticks. If we were a little more concerned with the conditions for burning, a good solution would be to start a pile small and feed it. Do a continuous feed and keep the intensity low. So there's that option. This is a big pile with all of the limbs in one place. This would be a really good thing to burn in the late fall when there's a little snow on the ground. The bigger the pile, the more you want to err on the side of caution, which suggests burning late in the fall instead of early in the fall. and waiting until there's absolutely no chance for it to dry out in a day or two and carry fire. If we've got a wind, say we've got a wind going towards the house, and we lit on the windward side, it would give you more intensity going through the pile than if we lit on the leeward side and had the fire work into the wind. So you always get more intensity if you burn upwind and let the fire go through the fuel rather than burn, basically downwind and let the fire back. Also, I could put a lot of water, or I could put some water on the fire, not where I'm going to light, but where I'm not going to light, and we could reduce the intensity considerably by the use of water. So we're going to light this with one match. A piece of paper with brown needles should be enough to get this one started. We're not lighting it totally on the upwind side. We're not lighting it totally on the downwind side. We're kind of lighting it in the middle. The smoke right now is from the rain the last few days. So that's why you'll get a little bit of smoke whenever there's moisture on the pile. And as that burns off, you're going to get a pretty clean burn with very little smoke after a few minutes. Because the sun's been out and dried some of the needles like this, we're apt to get some little spot fires around, but they're not going to do much. And I'm not worried about them at all. If we had lit on the far side with all of the wind going into the pile, it would be a lot more intense now than it is. So it's taking longer to burn because of where we lit it. The embers depend on receptive fuels to ignite. So in the summertime, when it's really been dry for a long period of time, the smallest little ember sometimes will land on punky wood and ignite that. But right now, we've got the rain that we've had the last few days is dampening the effect of ember ignition. Gotcha. So, and then all of the green fuel, there's a lot of moisture in all of this grass. There's a lot of moisture, so that moisture is dampening the effect of fire being able to move.
If this was August, and these fuels were dry and it hadn't rained in 2 months,
then it would carry.
This would be a completely different situation. When those embers land on the ground, and those are the embers we're talking about that accumulate in those little piles of leaves and needles around people's homes. It often starts a home on fire.
So the longer this burns, you see where the fire is spreading a little bit to the side?
Yeah. Starting to creep a little bit on the ground.
So that is just because of the radiant heat. The radiant heat is drying out those fuels and allowing that to burn. Radiant heat really supports